Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the English Hour. I'm Sophia, your host, and I'm thrilled to have Jacob joining us again today. Jacob, how are you feeling?
Hey Sophia, I'm feeling really good today. Excited for what we're diving into this time. Thanks for having me again.
Always a pleasure. Today I thought we could explore something a little different. Let's talk about childhood memories and how they shape who we become. Sounds good?
That sounds like a beautiful topic. Childhood is such a powerful foundation for everything we do later in life. Where should we start?
Let's start with something fun. What's one childhood memory that still makes you smile every time you think about it?
Oh, there's one that always makes me laugh. I used to build these crazy cardboard forts in my backyard, and I'd invite my cousins over for what we called imagination battles. We had pretend swords, maps, secret codes, the whole thing. It felt like we were in another world.
That sounds like the best kind of childhood. I love how kids can turn simple things into full-blown adventures with just a little imagination. Did those early adventures influence your creativity today?
Definitely. Those cardboard castles taught me how to dream without limits. I think a lot of the creativity I use now, whether I'm writing, designing, or problem solving, stems from those moments of uninhibited play.
I think we all had moments like that, where we were free to imagine and explore, without worrying about being right or perfect. For me, it was storytelling. I used to write little plays and make my siblings act them out with me.
I can totally see that. That's probably where your love for hosting and conversation began.
Exactly, and even now, every time I step into this podcast, it feels like tapping into that same playful spirit, just in a grown-up way.
That's such a great way to put it. Sometimes we forget that the things we loved as children are still a part of us, they just evolve with us.
So true. Let's talk a bit about how childhood experiences, both good and bad, shape the way we approach life today. What's your take on that?
Well, I believe even the difficult moments carry lessons. There were times I felt misunderstood or struggled with confidence. But those experiences taught me empathy and resilience. They helped me become someone who listens, who observes, who feels deeply. That's something I try to carry into all areas of my life.
That's really powerful, Jacob. I think so many people will relate to that. We often try to forget the painful moments, but sometimes they're the ones that teach us the most.
Absolutely. And they remind us that we're human, that it's okay to stumble. What matters is how we grow from it.
I couldn't agree more. You know, there's this quote I love. Your inner child still remembers. I think it's a beautiful reminder to stay connected to that part of ourselves, even when we grow older.
That's a beautiful quote. I think staying connected to your inner child keeps you grounded and joyful. It helps you approach life with curiosity instead of fear.
Yes, and it allows you to rediscover happiness in small, simple things. Like the smell of crayons, or a favorite song from when you were little, or just jumping in puddles after the rain.
Or even eating cereal straight out of the box while watching cartoons on a lazy Sunday morning.
Haha, exactly. Sometimes we forget that joy doesn't have to be complicated.
Not at all. It's in the small moments, the little flashes of memory that remind us who we've always been.
And that's what today's episode is really about: remembering. Remembering who we were, honoring where we came from, and carrying that spirit forward with us.
Definitely, Sophia. I think the more we reflect on our past, the more we understand the choices we make now. Like, sometimes I catch myself reacting in a certain way and realize it's totally connected to something I experienced as a kid.
That's so relatable. I once had this moment where I realized I always felt the need to say yes to everything because, as a child, I was praised a lot for being agreeable. It wasn't until I grew older that I learned saying no is just as important.
Wow. Yes, I've had a similar realization. I used to avoid confrontation at all costs because I saw arguments at home and I thought all conflict was bad. But later, I learned that healthy disagreement is a part of growth. It's not about fighting, it's about understanding.
That's such an important distinction. Conflict doesn't always mean chaos, it can actually mean care, right? Like, we care enough to express ourselves and work through it.
Absolutely. And it all ties back to what kind of communication we witnessed growing up. Some people saw open discussion, others saw silence, and that shapes how we deal with emotions.
Speaking of emotions, were you encouraged to express them as a child?
Not really. I think in many families, especially where I grew up, boys were expected to be tough and not show vulnerability. It took me years to unlearn that.
That's such a common story, and I think a lot of listeners will connect with that. For me, I was a pretty emotional child, and luckily my mom always told me it was okay to cry, okay to feel. That helped me become someone who's comfortable expressing myself.
That's amazing. I think if more kids were raised with that kind of emotional safety, we'd have a world full of better communicators and healthier relationships.
100%. And that emotional awareness really helps in adult life too, at work, in friendships, in love. It's all connected.
And when we become aware of those early influences, we gain the power to change. Like if I know I avoid expressing sadness because I was taught not to, I can slowly work on embracing that emotion instead of hiding it.
That's so empowering. Self-awareness is the first step toward healing, right?
Exactly. And healing isn't about blaming the past, it's about understanding it, giving yourself the compassion you might not have received back then.
Beautifully said. Have you ever tried writing letters to your younger self?
I have, actually. It was a really emotional experience. I told him he was doing his best, that he was brave even when he felt scared, and that it was okay to be sensitive.
That's so touching, Jacob. I've done it too. I told my younger self that her voice matters and that one day, people would actually want to hear what she had to say. And here we are.
And thank goodness for that, because this podcast has become such a safe space for so many people. You've created something really special.
Thank you, Jacob. And you're part of that too. These conversations mean so much, not just to our listeners but to me personally. Every episode helps me learn something new.
Same here. It's like a healing journey in real time.
I love that. So, let's keep it going. If you could go back and spend a day in your childhood, which day would you choose?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think I'd go back to this summer afternoon when my family had a picnic at the park. We didn't have much, but we had each other, and I remember laughing so hard I had tears in my eyes. Everything felt simple and perfect.
That sounds magical. I'd go back to this rainy day when I stayed home from school, and my grandma made me soup, and we watched old movies together. It felt like the whole world slowed down and nothing else mattered.
Isn't it funny how the moments we remember most are the quiet ones? Not the big achievements or the flashy events, but the small, cozy pockets of time.
Exactly. I think those are the ones that touch our hearts the deepest. And maybe that's a reminder for us now, to create more of those moments in our adult lives.
Absolutely, Sophia. I think we often chase big milestones, career goals, achievements, recognition, but forget that true joy usually hides in those ordinary moments. A warm cup of tea, a real conversation, a quiet walk.
So true. I've started practicing that more, just being present. Like, when I'm talking to someone, really listening. Or when I'm alone, noticing how the breeze feels or how the sky changes colors. It makes life richer.
That's mindfulness, isn't it? Being aware without judgment. I used to think mindfulness meant sitting still with my eyes closed for an hour, but it can be so simple. Even noticing how you breathe when you're washing dishes.
Yes. And it's surprisingly grounding. It pulls you out of your head and back into your body. And when you're present, your relationships improve too, because you're more in tune with others.
Exactly. I noticed that when I started really listening instead of just waiting for my turn to talk, it made my friendship stronger. People can tell when you're genuinely there with them.
That's a rare gift these days, right? With all the distractions, phones, deadlines, constant noise, presence is like a superpower.
It really is. And you know what else? I think presence helps with self-love, too. Like when you're fully in the moment, you stop judging yourself so much.
That's a beautiful point. You're not stuck in the past or anxious about the future, you're just here. And ear is usually okay. Sometimes, it's even beautiful.
Sometimes, it's all we need. And it reminds me of something I read once. Today is the tomorrow you worried about yesterday. And yet, here we are.
Oh, I love that. It's such a gentle reminder that we survive more than we think we will. We just have to trust the process.
And maybe learn to enjoy it a little more too. Even the messy parts.
Especially the messy parts. That's where growth lives.
Talking about all this makes me think, what would the world look like if everyone slowed down just a bit? If we all took a breath before reacting?
It would be quieter, kinder, and probably a lot more connected. We'd hear each other better. We'd understand more. Maybe even forgive more.
Forgiveness, that's a big one. Especially forgiving ourselves. I think we all carry things we regret, but we rarely give ourselves the same compassion we offer others.
That's true. Self-forgiveness can be the hardest, but also the most freeing. It's like letting go of a heavy bag you didn't even realize you were still carrying.
I like that image. A lot of emotional weight is invisible, but it affects everything: how we walk through life, how we treat people, even how we sleep at night.
And yet, we're allowed to put it down. We don't have to carry every mistake forever.
No, we don't. And realizing that gives us room to breathe, room to be human.
Jacob, these are the kinds of conversations that stay with people. I feel like our listeners are going to carry some of this with them today.
I hope so. If even one person feels a little lighter after this talk, then it's worth it.
I think that's one of the most powerful things about conversations like this, how a few honest words can ripple out and make someone feel seen or understood, even if we've never met them.
That's the magic of storytelling, right? It bridges gaps. Even if our lives are different, we all know what it's like to feel pain, joy, uncertainty. We speak different languages, but emotions are universal.
Exactly. And when we slow down enough to share those emotions, we realize we're not alone. That connection is so healing.
Do you ever notice how vulnerable moments, ones we're sometimes scared to share, are actually what draw people closer?
All the time. When someone opens up about something real, even if it's messy or imperfect, it creates a safe space. Like saying, hey, it's okay not to have it all together.
That's powerful. Because so many of us are walking around trying to look fine. And behind that mask, we're exhausted.
Totally. It's like we've been trained to smile and say, I'm good. Even when we're breaking inside. But when someone says, actually, I've been struggling, it's like exhaling after holding your breath too long.
And that honesty is a gift. Not just to the other person, but to ourselves too. It's like telling the truth out loud makes it easier to carry.
Yes. And sometimes when you speak it, you realize you're stronger than you thought. Just naming what you're feeling can bring clarity.
That's something I've learned through journaling. Just writing down the storm in my head helps me make sense of it. Have you ever tried that?
I have. It's like emptying a cluttered drawer. You don't even realize how much was piled up until you let it out. Sometimes I'll write without even thinking. And then I'll look back and go, wow, that's what I needed to hear.
That's so real. I've had moments like that too, where I'm writing and it feels like I'm giving advice to myself, but I didn't know I needed it until I saw it on paper.
It's like your inner voice finally gets a chance to speak. The one that's quiet beneath all the noise.
And that voice is usually kinder than we expect. It's not the critic, it's the gentle one. The part of you that's rooting for you.
I love that. And I think more people need to hear that your inner voice doesn't have to sound like a judge. It can sound like a friend.
Right. We wouldn't speak to our friends the way we often speak to ourselves. If a friend made a mistake, we'd comfort them, not tear them down.
So true. Imagine if we all treated ourselves like someone we love deeply. How different our days would feel.
Completely different. And when you start showing yourself that kind of compassion, it spills out into how you treat everyone else too.
It's a ripple effect. Kindness inward becomes kindness outward.
And maybe that's where change really begins, not in fixing everything out there, but in how we care for what's in here.
Yes, Jacob. Inner peace spreads. It's quiet but powerful.
Speaking of quiet power, do you ever find that solitude can be one of the most healing things too?
Oh, absolutely. It used to scare me, being alone with my thoughts. But now I crave that space. It's like a reset.
Same here. There's something sacred about sitting in silence and just letting yourself be. No pressure to perform, no need to be anyone else.
And sometimes in that stillness, answers come. Or at least, questions start to make more sense.
Yeah.
It's like tuning into your own frequency, away from all the static.
I think we underestimate how much we already know. We just need the quiet to hear it.
That's beautiful. And true, we spend so much time searching for answers outside ourselves, but often we're carrying them already.
Like buried treasure we forgot we had.
Exactly. And I think these kinds of conversations help dig it up gently, kindly.
They do. And I'm grateful for this space, Jacob. Every time we talk, I feel like I come away a little lighter.
Me too, Sophia. It's always a joy to sit down and just be real.
So, Jacob, earlier you mentioned journaling as a way to process thoughts. Have you ever gone back and read something from years ago and been surprised by what you wrote?
Oh, definitely. Sometimes I'll read an old entry and think, wow, I really went through that. It's like meeting a past version of myself. Some entries are raw and painful, others are hopeful. But they all remind me how much I've grown.
That's such a powerful reflection. I think sometimes we forget how far we've come because we're so focused on what's next.
Exactly. We get caught up in chasing goals, fixing flaws, improving, but forget to pause and appreciate progress. Even surviving hard days is growth.
That really hits home. Some seasons of life don't look like thriving, they look like holding on. And that deserves recognition too.
100%. Just making it through certain days is an accomplishment. We shouldn't underestimate that quiet kind of strength.
I agree. And when we normalize that it's okay not to be okay, sometimes it gives people permission to be honest about what they're going through.
It also creates deeper bonds. Some of my strongest friendships came from moments of shared vulnerability.
Yes, when you open up to someone, and they say, "Me too," it breaks the isolation. Suddenly you're not alone anymore.
And I think those connections are what really sustain us. Not just the fun moments, but the honest ones, the late night talks, the I don't know what I'm doing confessions.
There's so much beauty in that. It reminds me that strength doesn't always look loud or confident. Sometimes, it's just showing up when you feel like hiding.
Wow, that's powerful. Just showing up, that's a message more people need to hear.
So true. Even when you're tired, even when you're doubting yourself. Showing up for your life, your dreams, your relationships that matters.
It really does. I used to think I needed to be at my best all the time. But now I realize that consistency, not perfection, is what shapes a meaningful life.
That's gold right there. Perfection is exhausting, and it's never attainable anyway. But being real, being present, that's what people remember.
And that's what makes a legacy. Not flawless achievements, but how we made people feel, how we made ourselves feel along the way.
Beautifully said. I think this kind of wisdom only comes from lived experience, don't you?
Definitely. You can read all the quotes and listen to advice, but until you walk through something, it doesn't fully sink in.
I've had moments where something someone told me years ago suddenly made sense. Because I finally lived through it.
Exactly. It's like the lesson was waiting for the right season to bloom.
And once it does, you carry that with you. It becomes part of how you see the world, how you show up for others.
That's growth. Quiet, steady, invisible most days, but deep and lasting.
I love where this conversation is going, Jacob. It feels like we're just scratching the surface of something really meaningful.
Same here. These topics matter because they're the foundation of who we are and how we connect.
Absolutely. Let's keep going. You mentioned earlier that showing up consistently is more important than being perfect. How do you stay consistent when you're feeling unmotivated or overwhelmed?
Honestly, I simplify things. When I feel low, I don't aim to do everything. I just try to do one small thing that moves me forward, It could be writing one sentence, stretching for 5 minutes, or texting a friend back.
That makes a lot of sense. Small wins can build momentum, right?
Exactly. I've learned that motivation often follows action, not the other way around. Once you start, even with something tiny, it's easier to keep going.
That's such a helpful mindset. I think many people wait to feel ready. But if you wait for perfect conditions, you might never start.
So true. Life rarely gives you a perfect moment. Most of the time, you just have to begin in the middle of the mess.
And there's so much strength in that, just taking that first step despite the noise in your head.
Yes, and over time, those small actions add up. You don't even notice the progress day to day, but when you look back, you see how far you've come.
I feel that deeply. Sometimes, I'll look back at a tough season and realize I was building resilience without even knowing it.
That's the thing, growth often happens quietly. It's not always flashy or dramatic. Sometimes, it's just getting up every day and choosing not to give up.
That's such an important reminder. And I think a lot of listeners need to hear that right now.
I agree, especially in a world that celebrates fast success and constant hustle. But healing, growing, even discovering yourself, that takes time and patience.
Patience is underrated. We want instant results, but the most valuable things in life take time. Relationships, confidence, purpose, they all require nurturing.
Exactly. And speaking of relationships, I think consistency matters there too. It's not about grand gestures, it's about showing up day after day.
Yes, sending a check-in message, remembering important dates, listening without fixing, those are the things that make people feel seen and valued.
Right? It's not about being perfect for someone, it's about being present with them.
That's beautiful, Jacob. And it ties back to what we said earlier, connection happens in those real, imperfect moments.
It does. And honestly, those are the moments I cherish the most. The unfiltered late night talks, the laughter over silly things, the "I'm here if you need me" texts.
Same here. Those small, consistent moments are what create trust and depth.
And I think we forget sometimes that we can be that person for someone else. Even a kind word or a few minutes of real listening can make someone's day.
That's such an empowering thought. You never know the impact of your presence in someone's life.
Exactly. Just being available, being kind, and being real, it goes a long way.
I feel like we could explore this topic for hours. There's so much richness in just being human and learning how to be better at it together.
I couldn't agree more. Conversations like this remind me of what truly matters.
I love how grounded this is getting. Let's go a little deeper. Do you think vulnerability is essential for building those kinds of deep human connections?
Absolutely. Vulnerability is the bridge. Without it, we're just sharing facts or performing. When we let our guard down and say, "Hey, I'm struggling too," that's when people feel safe enough to do the same.
It's true. There's so much strength in saying, I don't have it all figured out. It's actually where the real connection begins.
Exactly. And I think we've been conditioned to hide that side. Social media doesn't help either, it often rewards perfection.
Totally. We see polished highlight reels and start to believe that everyone else has it together. But when someone breaks that illusion with honesty, it's refreshing.
Yeah, it reminds us that we're not alone in our messiness. That it's okay to have off days, or to not be okay all the time.
And ironically, when we open up like that, people respect us more. They relate more. It's like we give them permission to be real too.
That's the power of authenticity. People are drawn to it because it's rare in a world full of masks.
Do you ever find it hard to be vulnerable in your personal life?
Definitely. I still have moments where I hesitate, like, should I share this? But I try to remind myself that withholding usually leads to distance. Sharing even awkwardly leads to closeness.
That's such a real insight. Vulnerability doesn't have to be perfect or eloquent, it just has to be true.
Exactly. And sometimes it's messy or emotional or even a little scary. But it's also where healing happens.
I remember a time when I shared something personal with a friend, and I was so nervous. But instead of judgment, I got compassion. And that shifted our relationship in a beautiful way.
That's the magic. Vulnerability invites intimacy. And once people know they can be real with you, the connection deepens.
It's funny how we fear rejection so much that we don't realize how often vulnerability actually invites love.
So true, we think, if they see this part of me, they'll run. But more often than not, people lean in.
I think listeners would really benefit from hearing that. That vulnerability isn't weakness, it's courage.
100%. It's one of the bravest things we can do. To show up as ourselves, especially when we're uncertain of the outcome.
And to do it again and again, even after we've been hurt.
Yes, that's resilience. Not hardening, but choosing to stay soft in a world that sometimes makes it tempting to close off.
I love that. Staying soft, staying human, that's powerful.
It is. And it's a choice, one we have to make every day.
Especially in relationships, romantic, friendships, even with family. Vulnerability keeps them alive.
Absolutely. Silence or avoidance can create walls. But honesty, even if it's uncomfortable, builds bridges.
You know, this reminds me of something Brené Brown said. Vulnerability is the birthplace of love, belonging, joy, courage, empathy, and creativity.
That quote gives me chills every time. It's like the emotional blueprint for real connection.
So what would you say to someone listening right now who wants to be more open, but they're scared?
I'd say start small, share a tiny truth with someone you trust. Notice how it feels. You don't have to spill everything. Just one honest moment can begin to unlock a deeper connection.
That's so good. And I'd add, give yourself grace. It's okay if it feels awkward or scary. Courage doesn't mean the fear is gone. It just means you chose to speak anyway.
Exactly, and the more you practice, the easier it becomes. Vulnerability grows like a muscle.
And each time you're met with compassion, it reinforces that it's safe to be seen.
Yes, and if someone doesn't respond with kindness, that's about them, not you.
That's an important reminder. Your truth is still valid, even if someone else can't receive it well.
Absolutely. Surrounding yourself with safe, supportive people makes all the difference.
I'm really enjoying this flow, Jacob. It's rare to have such an open and honest space. Let's keep going. Have you ever had a moment where vulnerability completely changed the course of a relationship?
Yes, actually. A few years ago, I had a falling out with a close friend. We stopped talking for months. Then one day I decided to write a letter. Not to justify anything, but just to share how I felt hurt, confused, and still valuing the friendship.
That must have taken so much courage.
It did. I was nervous. But to my surprise, he wrote back with the same level of honesty. He'd been hurting too. That letter opened a door, and we rebuilt from there. We're close again now, but the bond is even deeper because of that moment.
That's incredible. It's like when we choose vulnerability, we give others a chance to meet us halfway.
Exactly. And sometimes they don't. But when they do, it's beautiful.
Have you noticed how vulnerability can even change the way we relate to ourselves?
Oh yeah. When I'm honest with myself about my fears, insecurities, even the stuff I wish I didn't feel, I stop fighting so much internally. I find more peace.
Yes. It's like you stop pretending, even to yourself. And that honesty brings clarity.
Totally. There's a relief in saying, okay, this is where I'm at. You stop wasting energy on the mask.
And I think that's when growth really begins. Not from pretending to be okay, but from accepting where we are.
It reminds me of journaling. I started doing it a while back, and the things that come out on paper surprise me.
Same here. It's like your inner voice finally gets a chance to speak when the noise quiets down.
Exactly. And I think that's connected to vulnerability too. Being willing to hear your own truth, even if it's uncomfortable.
That takes a lot of courage. Sometimes we avoid listening because we're afraid of what we might find.
Right? But the truth is never the enemy. Hiding from it, that's where we get stuck.
So, what do you think stops most people from being vulnerable? Is it fear of judgment?
Definitely. Judgment, rejection, and maybe even fear of appearing weak. There's this myth that strength is about having no cracks. But real strength is standing with your cracks and saying, I'm still here.
That's so powerful. And relatable. Everyone has cracks. We just don't talk about them enough.
Yeah. And imagine how healing it would be if we all just admitted that sometimes we're not okay.
The world would feel less lonely, I think.
For sure. And honestly, I believe people crave that kind of space where they can be fully themselves without the pressure to perform.
So true. And I hope this conversation is creating that kind of space for someone listening right now.
Me too. If even one person feels a little more seen or understood, then it's worth it.
This makes me think about how vulnerability plays into creativity too. When you're writing or performing or even podcasting, it's all vulnerable.
Yes, you're putting a part of yourself out there, not knowing how people will respond.
And yet, that's often where the magic is. The things we're scared to say are usually the most powerful things we can share.
I've learned that the more personal something feels, the more universal it tends to be.
Isn't that funny? Like, this is just my weird little thought. And then someone else goes, "Me too."
Exactly. It's like we're all quietly waiting for someone else to say it first.
And when someone does, it's like a collective exhale.
That's the beauty of honest conversation. It creates connection, not just between two people, but with everyone listening in.
So, what's one vulnerable truth you'd want to share right now? Something you think others might relate to?
I'd say sometimes I feel like I'm behind in life. Like everyone else is further along, more successful, more certain. And I know it's not true, but I still feel it.
Wow. Thank you for saying that. I think so many people feel that way but are afraid to admit it.
Yeah, it's like this quiet comparison game we all play. But everyone's on their own timeline.
Absolutely. And no one's path is linear. We all have detours, pauses, and unexpected turns.
And that's okay. It's taken me time to believe that, but I'm getting there.
I'm proud of you for sharing that. And I hope someone listening, right now, feels a little less alone.
Thanks, Sophia. Sometimes when we talk about these things, it makes me wonder, what if we taught emotional honesty in schools like a regular subject,
Oh, I love that idea. Imagine if kids grew up learning how to name their feelings, how to listen without fixing, how to be kind to themselves.
right? It could change an entire generation. Less emotional suppression, more empathy.
I remember in school, we had subjects like math, science, literature, all important, of course. But no one ever taught us how to handle a broken heart, or how to sit with anxiety.
Exactly. And yet those are the things we all go through. I think emotional intelligence should be treated like a life skill, not just something you learn by trial and error.
Totally agree. And if we don't learn those things young, we end up carrying those unspoken wounds into adulthood, into our relationships, our work, even our self-worth.
Speaking of self-worth, do you ever feel like it fluctuates? Like one day you're confident and grounded, and the next you're questioning everything?
Oh yes. It's definitely not linear for me. Some mornings I wake up and feel like I can conquer the world. Others, I wonder if I'm enough, if what I'm doing even matters.
Same. I've realized that self-worth isn't a constant feeling. It's more like a practice.
Yes, like a muscle you build. With kindness, with truth, and sometimes with rest.
And with boundaries too. I used to struggle with saying no because I tied my value to being helpful or available all the time.
That's such a common one. Especially for people who are naturally nurturing or empathetic.
For sure. But now I see that no isn't rejection, it's protection. Of your time, your energy, your peace.
I needed to hear that. Lately, I've been saying yes to too many things. I've felt a little drained, but guilty for slowing down.
We're allowed to slow down, Sophia. You know what helped me? Reframing rest as something productive. Like when I rest, I'm recharging the version of me that does all the amazing things later.
That's such a healthy mindset. Rest isn't laziness, it's preparation.
Exactly. And it's also a message to ourselves. I matter, even when I'm not producing.
That's deep. So often we equate our value with output. But we're human beings, not human doings.
Beautifully said. And that ties into something else I've been reflecting on lately: identity. Who am I when I'm not achieving anything?
Wow. That's such a powerful question. Because we're conditioned to define ourselves by our roles, our jobs, our relationships, our accomplishments.
Yeah. But take all that away, and what's left? I think that's where the real work begins.
And sometimes, what's left is uncomfortable. Silence, uncertainty, even loneliness.
Yes. But it's also where authenticity lives. In that quiet place, we can meet ourselves without the performance.
That takes bravery. To face your own stillness.
It does. But I think everyone reaches a moment in life where the distractions stop working and the truth starts calling.
I've felt that. When the noise fades, the questions get louder.
Exactly. And those questions, who am I? What do I really want? They're not easy. But they're sacred.
They are. And sometimes the answers come slowly, like pieces of a puzzle.
Or they change over time, and that's okay too. We're allowed to evolve.
Yes, we're not supposed to stay the same. Growth is messy, nonlinear, and full of surprises.
It's also full of grief sometimes. Letting go of old versions of yourself or old dreams can feel like a kind of mourning.
So true. I once had to say goodbye to a dream I'd carried since childhood. At first, I felt like I was giving up. But eventually, I realized I was making space for something better.
That resonates deeply. Sometimes we hold on to things because they're familiar, not because they're meant for us anymore.
And there's such strength in releasing what no longer fits, even when it hurts.
That reminds me of a quote I love: growth is not becoming something you're not, it's returning to who you were.
Oh wow. That gave me goosebumps. It's like peeling back the layers of expectations and rediscovering our true essence.
Yes. The version of us that existed before the world told us who to be.
Jacob, I feel like we could talk about this forever.
Honestly, me too. These conversations feel like soul nourishment.
That's exactly what it is. Deep, raw, honest connection. It's rare, and I'm grateful.
Sophia, earlier you mentioned belonging. That's something I've been thinking about a lot lately. Like, where do I truly feel like I belong?
That's such a vulnerable question. Belonging is one of our deepest human needs, isn't it? But it's also one of the most misunderstood.
Exactly. I used to think belonging meant fitting in, adapting, shifting parts of myself so I'd be accepted.
I used to do that too. You start editing yourself so much, you forget who you really are.
Yes. And the sad part is, even when people accept that version of you, it still feels lonely. Because deep down, you know it's not the real you they're accepting.
That kind of loneliness is the hardest. Surrounded by people, yet unseen.
That hits home. I think real belonging starts when you can show up as your whole self and still feel safe.
Definitely. Not just tolerated, but welcomed. Even in your weirdness, your flaws, your emotions.
That makes me think of those rare friendships, the ones where you say something totally offbeat, and instead of judgment, they laugh and say, same.
Yes, or the ones where you can cry and not apologize for it. Just be.
I wish more people had that kind of connection, especially with themselves.
That's such an important point. Belonging to yourself, accepting your truth, your story, your voice, that's the foundation.
Right? Because if you don't feel at home in yourself, no place or person will ever fully feel like home.
And that inner work is hard. Sometimes, the first step to belonging is disappointing others.
Woo, that's powerful. Choosing yourself even if it means losing someone who only loved the edited version.
Yeah. I've lost connections that couldn't hold space for the real me. It hurt, but in hindsight, it was necessary.
Same here. And the relationships that remained, they deepened. Because they were rooted in truth, not performance.
Jacob, this is why I love talking with you. You remind me that we're not alone in these feelings.
Thank you, Sophia. That means the world. I think when we normalize these conversations, we create a ripple effect. Permission for others to go deeper.
That's the goal. Less perfection, more presence, more realness.
Speaking of realness, can I ask you something personal?
Of course.
Have you ever struggled with feeling too much? Like, too emotional, too deep, too sensitive?
Oh my gosh, yes. That's been a lifelong theme for me. I used to shrink myself, dim my light, just to avoid making others uncomfortable.
I relate to that. Especially as a man, society often labels sensitivity as weakness.
But it's not weakness. It's your superpower. Sensitivity means you're attuned, empathetic, present.
Thank you. That's so validating. And honestly, I see your depth as one of your greatest strengths.
You saying that, it's healing. I think we all need reminders that our feelings aren't flaws.
Exactly. Emotions are data. They tell us what we need, what matters, where we hurt.
And when we allow them, instead of judging them, we unlock something beautiful: compassion.
For ourselves and for others. I think the world would be softer if we stopped shaming feelings and started honoring them.
Yes, more listening, less fixing. More, I see you, and less, just get over it.
That's why I love what you're doing with this show, Sophia. You're holding space for real conversations. No filters, just truth.
Thank you, Jacob. That's exactly my intention. Because somewhere out there, someone is listening and realizing they're not broken. They're just human.
And being human is enough.
Always has been, always will be.
So, what should we explore next? There's so much we've touched on: identity, belonging, emotions, self-worth.
How about we dive into love next time? Not just romantic love, but all forms of love: friendship, self-love, unconditional love.
I'd love that, pun intended.
You never miss a chance for a dad joke.
Guilty as charged.
Well, that brings us to the end of another heartfelt conversation. Jacob, thank you for sharing your thoughts and experiences with us today.
Thank you, Sophia. It's been an incredible discussion. I feel like we're all walking away with something valuable.
I couldn't agree more. And to everyone listening, remember, you are enough just as you are. If you've enjoyed today's episode, be sure to like, share, and subscribe so we can continue having these real conversations. Until next time, take care and stay true to yourself.
Take care, everyone.
Bye for now.